Hey, I'm Blair Best, and tonight on The Story, we begin in Southeast Portland, right outside Multnomah County's Deflection Center. It opened last year amid major pushback from the neighborhood, but recent data shows that the goal of this center to get people into drug treatment is largely just not happening, begging the question, what exactly are taxpayers paying for? It's our big story tonight. It's been nearly a year since Multnomah County opened this deflection center in Southeast Portland, a place officers take people caught solely with possession of hard drugs to connect them with treatment instead of sending them to jail. The center opened amid major pushback from the neighborhood.
Nothing is really changing for the better.
Jens Knudsen is the co-chair of the Buckman Community Association.
We did anticipate a higher volume of people entering the neighborhood and sticking around. Truth is, they haven't been bringing that many people there in the first place.
Recent county data shows from January 1st to March 31st of this year, officers referred people to the deflection center 62 times. 42 people engaged with the program, meaning they went to the center and talked with staff there. 6 people completed deflection. Completion is when someone accesses at least one service referral within 30 days. Those 6 people who completed the program accessed 8 services. 5 went to outpatient treatment, 2 got peer services, and 1 person went to detox.
Cool. We paid how many millions of dollars for one person to go to detox?
Multnomah County spent $3.8 million of taxpayer money to turn this building into the Deflection Center. Since it opened, a $4.3 million state grant has been funding it. That runs out next month. The county says they are anticipating more state money in October.
We should be getting people help, not spending money to do nothing.
David Watnick's children go to the neighboring preschool, which sued the county last year over closed-door decisions about the center.
You know, I think about it like as a parent of the school. I mean, our biggest fear was that it was going to create an unsafe environment. But if nobody's using it, I guess that means there's like less risk to the neighborhood. But as a kind of taxpayer and also somebody who cares that people with serious drug addiction are getting clean, it's like, what the hell is the point?
Yeah, I think deflection overall has been going really, really well.
Tony Vesna runs 4D Recovery. His outreach workers have been part of the program since day one.
What do you have to say to people who see these numbers and think it's just a total waste of taxpayer dollars?
Yeah, I mean, I would say to them, if deflection wasn't intervening on people, where else would they be going? Would there be anybody intervening on them?
Since the deflection program started in September 2024, officers have referred 283 people. 183 engaged with the program. 43 people completed it, with 16 going to outpatient treatment, 11 into shelter, and 7 to detox.
I'm actually encouraged about the number of people who are going into the program, but I'm not surprised to see the poor conversion rate for treatment because of the lack of capacity. One of the problems that we face is when somebody's intervened on and then they want to go into treatment, specifically withdrawal management detox, they have a hard time getting in the same day.
Oregon does not have enough treatment centers to meet the need, but there might be another reason people aren't getting to treatment.
I don't know anybody that's gone through it at all yet.
Al uses fentanyl.
Personally, I've been out here since I was 14 years old.
And camps about a block away from the deflection center.
So basically you can only get help through that program if you get arrested for being caught, like using fentanyl or something?
Doesn't make any sense. Anybody that's using isn't trying to get caught. So obviously that's going to deter like people from getting into the program. Treatment should be something that you want to go to on your own. Nobody's ever going to get sober if they don't want to do it.
Yeah, I could understand somebody saying that. I felt that at one time, and I went to treatment voluntarily a couple times. And, you know, the last time when I got clean, I got arrested and taken to jail, and I got an opportunity to think about what I want to do with my life. And the research shows that there is really no difference between compelled treatment and voluntary treatment success.
What the research does show is that the current county system is slow to meet the need.
Where's all the funding going if only one person's done it?
Yes.
I mean, we're still out here on the streets.
Why is it worth that much money and that much disruption, that much, dollars in planning?
Okay, so the next report on the deflection data covering April through June of this year is set to be released sometime this month. But let's remember, this county deflection program is not the only program working to get people on the streets connected to services. Many other groups, like those at 4D Recovery, are doing that work every day.
You know, you're not going to see the numbers show up in deflection necessarily, but it has the deflection framework where we have people in recovery. All they do is go out in the streets every day, work with PD, identify people who are using drugs who could use services, and we're getting 1 to 2, sometimes 3 or 4, sometimes families willing voluntarily to come in, get an assessment, and the biggest barrier is getting them into detox.
Tony's team is hoping to soon use the county's Deflection Center in Southeast Portland as a place to send people to wait until a detox bed opens up so they don't just go back to the streets and continue the cycle. Okay, talk to us. What do you think about the latest deflection data? Did it surprise you? Why or why not? Email the story at kgw.com or call and leave us a voicemail, 503-226-5090. Well, we are just over 3 weeks away from Oregon's one-day special legislative session on transportation funding. And today, Governor Tina Kotek released a few more details on the plan lawmakers will consider come August 29th. The idea is to fill a more than $350 million budget gap at ODOT over the next 2 years and get some funding to local transportation agencies as well. If nothing is accomplished during the special session, it would trigger the largest set of state layoffs in Oregon history, with ODOT needing to trim 10% of state road workers. That's around 500 jobs. Those layoffs would take effect mid-September, and another round of layoffs would be in January. But in order to save those jobs and keep service levels where they're at now, Oregonians would be paying more at the gas pump. DMV and more money would be taken out of your paycheck. Here's a chart with a look at most of the fee hikes that would kick in January 1st. The gas tax would go up by 6 cents. Registration fees across the board would increase by $42. And you'll notice there are $30 registration surcharge increases for fuel-efficient vehicles and EVs. Title fees are seeing a massive jump, up nearly $140 on the base fee alone. And then there's the payroll tax that comes out of your paycheck. The proposal would double that from 0.1% to 0.2%. That money would help fund transit districts across the state. The pay per mile program, or road user charge as lawmakers call it, would be mandatory for some drivers starting in summer 2027. Existing electric vehicles would be first that summer, then new EVs in January of 2028. And then in the summer of 28, hybrid and plug-in hybrids would have to enroll in the program, which is meant to supplement gas tax revenues since EVs don't pay gas taxes. Once you're enrolled, you would not have to pay extra registration fees for EVs, which is how the state supplements the gas tax revenue from those vehicles now. The proposal also includes many ODOT accountability measures, including regular audits of the agency and giving the governor the power to hire and fire the ODOT director. Today, the Republican leader in the House, Christine Drazen, blasted the proposal as more than just a Band-Aid for the next 2 years.
So she gave that framework originally that said 6-cent gas tax and all these increases in title and registration. And then we kept talking, saying, Oregonians can't afford that. It's too much. There's other ways to balance the budget. If you just want to balance a budget, let's balance a budget. And so she is portraying this like it's just this modest, kind of a Band-Aid, near-term solution to some challenges. That is not this proposal. And they keep giving us this false choice. Like, hey, if you want to keep these jobs, you got to raise these taxes. It is a false choice. We can do both. It's possible. We keep showing them new ways to do it when they don't like the one suggestion. We keep looking, we keep digging, we find new ways for them to cover these jobs. And at some point, they have got to listen to Oregonians and recognize they don't want these taxes and they can't afford them.
Representative Drazen is also unhappy that the governor called the special session to be on the Friday of Labor Day weekend, when she says families won't be paying much attention as they gear up for the start of school or take one last camping trip. She also told us last she heard from the House Speaker, Democrat Julie Fahey, there is not a plan to hold a public hearing on this proposal during the special session. Drayson says if it stays that way, she is not ruling out a GOP walkout. So that's another aspect to keep an eye on as we get closer to August 29th. If all Democrats vote together, no Republican votes are needed to pass the bill because the Dems have a supermajority in both chambers. But Democrats alone do not have the numbers for a quorum in both chambers, which is required for any work to be done. A few Republicans in both the House and the Senate would need to at least show up to have a quorum and do state business. When Governor Kotek released the framework for this proposal a few weeks ago, she was asked if she thinks this has the votes in the legislature to pass. Here's what she said.
I believe the proposal as I provided has the support to be successful on August 29th.
Time will tell, and you can bet we will be watching. Okay, because of the funding limbo for ODOT ahead of the special session, they've scaled back maintenance like graffiti removal and clearing homeless camps on ODOT property, of which there are plenty around Portland. As my photographer and I were driving through Southeast Portland today after an interview, I spotted a cul-de-sac off Southeast Foster along I-205 that not too long ago was filled with tents and RVs. It's at the end of a residential street, and I remembered doing a story about the camp and neighbors' concerns. So we decided to pull over. In place of the camp, we found dozens of plastic orange barriers. The city tells me they got the approval to install barriers there last summer, but neighbors tell me these ones showed up just last month.
I love the barriers. We actually used to have a whole bunch of trailer homes that would come in here and they would just take up all the space, and it was super annoying to deal with having to call the police all the time.
It's kept RVs and large vehicle convoys from parking there for extended periods, but it hasn't kept people from pitching tents and camping.
Okay, these two have lived right next to the camps for about 5 years, and they've reported the revolving camps to the city countless times.
It's very, it can be extremely stressful and trying at times. Some folks out here I'm able to engage with and establish a good relationship with, and I can work with them and kind of establish a rapport, and things are not very bad. And sometimes people will swing machetes at me. So you get a mixed bag.
Yeah. I also talked with a woman who camps there now, despite the barriers. She sets up her tent in between them. She didn't want to show her face on camera, but I do want to play some of our conversation for you and what she says the barriers are actually being used for.
They're filled with water and they have a plug. Honest to God, we unplug the water and we move them as we need. Not trying to be disrespectful, but you guys aren't giving us much options.
What do you do with the water?
Since it's chemically treated, we sanitize our living spaces. We do laundry in them and rinse in the other one.
So the barriers aren't keeping you away at all?
No. I mean, look at how they're spaced. It's perfect. Tent, each one does a tent. We had it lined up for a while, but some people got scared when ODOT was coming out at about daylight time telling us we got 24 hours to get out of here, and sorry, we're not going. So when ODOT comes and moves us, we jump over to the county side. When county comes and moves us, we jump back to the ODOT.
And you keep track on the ODOT funding and all of that?
Yeah, they have actually lost funding, and that's why they're coming out making empty threats. So the removal of camps and people isn't happening right now, especially for ODOT. So move to ODOT side.
So you're trying to get off the streets?
I've been trying to get off the streets for years and years and years, and the fact that they want to claim they help us, they don't. Because if they did, I personally should have been a priority. I'm terminally ill. And I'm 43 years old, and I've been out here on and off since I was 12. And then this last run, I've been out here for about 3 years straight.
Oh my gosh. And it's dangerous out here for you?
That's not dangerous. It's not even what can describe what goes on out here.
I often hear that from homeless women on the streets, but what I didn't know was that homeless people benefit from these barriers and that they keep tabs on things like ODOT funding when it comes to camp removals. Okay, coming up next on the story, several of President Trump's tariffs on foreign goods went into effect today. We checked back in with local businesses to see how the tariff talk over the last few months has affected their sales. That's next when the story returns. Well, the KGW School Supply Drive is going on right now, and some of the most needed supplies are pencils, lined paper, crayons, and markers. You can drop them off with our community partners like Safeway or Rick's Custom Fencing. And during this week of giving, for every $1 donated at any On Point branch, they'll donate $5. We want to thank On Point Community Credit Union and the rest of our partners for everything they're doing to make this year's supply drive a success. And hey, on Saturday, join us at the Washington Square Mall from noon to 4 to do some shopping, pick up some extra school supplies, and drop them off with us. Again, that's Saturday from noon to 4 at Washington Square Mall. All right, let's talk about tariffs. Today, many of the Trump administration's tariffs on foreign nations went into effect. Portland business owners say federal tariffs have directly forced them to raise prices at their stores, leading to lower sales. Well, Evan Watson checked with local shops earlier this year, and recently he went back to each store to see if and how tariff impacts have changed.
Don Seymour owns Fiber Rhythm, a yarn and craft store in Southeast Portland. A knitting machine like this one is a big ticket item.
In the second quarter, we sold as many as we sold all of last year.
Great news. Until that bubble burst. Tariff-related price increases kicked in, and costs rose 37%, adding hundreds of dollars to a machine's price tag.
So we'll probably, for the rest of the year, have pretty close to zero sales on knitting machines.
It's a clear example of tariff impacts. Seymour says consumers changed their behavior, buying early. Now that overseas suppliers have raised their prices to account for tariffs, and shop owners like Seymour have followed suit, customers are largely cutting back.
So if you looked at like average order value and the number of people in your conversion as people are coming into the store, those numbers have all gone down.
In April, KGW talked with 3 Portland business owners about the Trump administration's proposed tariffs, tax increases on imported goods that Trump argues will reduce budget deficits and generate new wealth and domestic manufacturing. For many industries reliant on toys and other items made abroad, tariffs simply mean higher prices.
We absorb what we can, but as a small business, we have lower margins, lower room for error, and we just have to pass on some things.
John Weber is a seismic retrofitter who mostly uses domestic steel and wood. He said he would be less affected.
But I feel like we are in a pretty good position to ride this out.
Months later, Weber reports that's mostly true. Prices stayed generally steady, but business has been slow. He attributes that to apprehension over tariffs and interest rates. At Fiber Rhythm, the cost for yarn, imported from around the globe, has risen between 10 and 20%.
We can't afford to not pass it on. We have low enough margins.
With higher prices across the board, Seymour says she knows her store won't be considered essential.
I feel like it's just another tax on consumers, but without saying it's a tax on consumers.
Already some customers are asking about less expensive alternatives.
As it gets longer and longer and they're having to pay more and more for other things, they're going to spend less here. That's what I think.
What does that mean for someone like you?
That means I dig into my own savings to pay the rent by the end of the year. That's what that means.
Evan Watson, KGW News.
With many new tariffs now in effect, importers will pay a tax between 10 and 50% on goods coming into the U.S. The U.S. tariff rate is now the highest it's been since the Great Depression, which began nearly a century ago. We're back right after this. Well, home surveillance video shows the moment Salem police found a suspected kidnapper hiding in the bushes. The suspect, now in custody, accused of luring an 11-year-old girl from her home, attempting to sexually abuse her, even offering her meth. Alma McCarty spoke with the girl's father about how she was found and why police say the investigation into the suspect does not stop here.
I just keep replaying it in my head.
Roy Ivy replaying the terror from just a day prior. The family's realization that his 11-year-old daughter wasn't in the front yard.
She was yelling and yelling and yelling and couldn't find her. I said, well, she's probably out picking blackberries. She said, Dad, I looked. She's not picking blackberries.
That was just after 4 p.m. Tuesday. By 5, nearly every available Salem police officer and the surrounding community would be searching high and low.
She has low spectrum autism, high functioning, low spectrum. So she really doesn't wander, except for this one time. She wandered.
Wandered when a stranger lured her away. Ivy said with the promise to see some rocks and crystals.
When I was her age, I could run all over. My wife could run all over with not an issue. I don't let them go by themselves anywhere for this reason.
After an hours-long search, a neighbor pointed out some suspicious activity to investigators who were out canvassing in this neighborhood. From there, officers found the missing girl in this area. Surveillance video shows the moments police pulled the suspect from the shrubs, less than a quarter mile from where he'd allegedly taken her.
He was holding her and stroking her arm, and he had kissed her cheek.
Investigators identified this man, 48-year-old Elijah Galaviz Arce, as the suspect, facing kidnapping and sex abuse charges.
These sorts of behaviors are very abnormal in a community as a whole, and typically, in my experience and my training, these sorts of behaviors don't sort of pop up overnight.
That's why Salem police are sharing this photo, because detectives believe there could be other victims.
I'm pissed at him. I am pissed at anybody who thinks that this is okay. These are children. Let them be children.
In Salem, Alma McCarty, KGW News.
Well, that is the end of our show, folks. Thanks so much for watching. The good stuff is coming your way next. And don't forget, everyone has a story to tell. If you ever miss an episode of The Story at 6:30, we re-air it at 8:30 and 10:30 on our TV app KGW Plus, which you can download for free right now on Roku, Apple TV, and Fire TV. Have a great Thursday night. The weekend is almost here. I'll see you right back here tomorrow night at 6:30.